welcome to another edition of the TimeFlies podcast. I'm your host, Dariel, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about another so-called summer blockbuster hit, summer blockbuster movie. We will be talking about A Quiet Place Day One, and a lot of thoughts, a lot of thoughts. I saw this a couple of days ago, so I wanted to try and get this out as soon as possible so that my thoughts are fresh. Listen, man, my overall feelings are pretty meh about this movie, so I'm going to be going back to the original format of how I break down these movies. It's going to make it a little bit easier for myself. So I'm going to be breaking down the movie into different categories. So the first category that I'm going to be talking about the best performance in the movie. And before I get into all that, I just want to give you a general description of what the movie's about. So A Quiet Place Day One, this is a prequel to the A Quiet Place movies, part one and part two. So part one is with John Krasinski and with Emily Blunt. And basically we pick up with this family in a post-apocalyptic world where there are these alien creatures that come to Earth and they pretty much just destroy everything in sight. And the way that they maneuver is they maneuver through sound. So you're living in a world where John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, and their kids, where the way they're communicating is through sign language, is through writing things down on a piece of paper. Because the moment you make a noise, the moment the alien hears you, it's gonna rip you to shreds. And reading an article about this movie, A Quiet Place Day One, the prequel, I ended up finding out that the aliens actually have a name. So the aliens' names are actually death angels, which was very interesting to me because I've never heard anybody in any other article refer to them as death angels. In part one, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt, we find out how they live their life, how hard it is to go about day to day. In part two, Emily Blunt and the kids, I'm not 100% sure where that movie picks up because it came out a while ago. And honestly, after part one, the movies have been kind of dull. They've been kind of mediocre, in my opinion. The best scene in all three movies, in my opinion, is the opening scene in part one, where John Krasinski and Emily Blunt they lose their child because the child is playing with a toy. I believe it's a fire truck, and the fire truck goes off and it's making a lot of noise. John Krasinski is rushing to the kid, and he sees the alien running towards him as well, but he's not able to get it because the alien just grabs him off, and you don't see what ends up happening. But you know the kid dies. That's the best scene in part one, part two, and in this prequel. But going back to this movie. So this movie, A Quiet Place Day One, setting up the movie stars Lupita Nyong'o and the movie stars Joseph Quinn. So Joseph Quinn, who's been on and popping ever since season four of Stranger Things came out. Him and Lupita Nyong'o, whose character's name is Samira or Sam. She's a cancer patient and she's living in hospice. And her days are numbered. She's about to transition. And in this hospice, on this day, they decide to take a trip into the city to go see a play. And then in the middle of the play, things start happening, and we see a whole bunch of meteor showers. We see a whole bunch of meteors hitting Earth, and we see what New York, Manhattan is like, the chaos, all the stuff that's going on. So after the Death Angels, after they strike Earth, Lupita Nyong'o, she comes across this guy played by Joseph Quinn, whose name is Eric. They develop a bond. Sam, Lupita Nyong'o's character, she ends up helping him out because Eric, Joseph Quinn's character, we find out that he's from England, I believe, and he's in the States, going to law school. He has no family, he has no friends. So Sam, Lupita Nyong'o's character, she initially just wanted to stay to herself with her cat, and the cat's name is Fredo. And Eric and Sam, they basically trek through New York, and we find out throughout the movie that Lupita Nyong'o's character, Sam, amidst all the aliens and the Death Angels running amok through the city, Lupita Nyong'o's character, Sam, she actually wants to go uptown to Harlem and she wants to go to Patsy's Pizzeria. And we end up finding out that that was like a nice pastime that she has, a nice memory she has of her father. Her father used to own a jazz club, and right next to the jazz club was Patsy's Pizzeria. And it was like a tradition that every time he played, I end up getting a slice or two at Patsy's Pizzeria. That's pretty much what we see of Lupita Nyong'o's character, Sam, and Joseph Quinn's character, Eric. They're trying to make this trek to Uptown Harlem, New York all day, every day, you heard. And the movie has its normal beats. You know, there are points in the movie where they're going through the city, they're not trying to make any noise, they're not making noise, and we see the angels or the death angels just chasing after them, and it's about survival. And the movie really hits on the beats of what are you gonna make with your life? Like Lupita Nyong'o's character Sam, her days are numbered. She's about to transition, but she ends up willing to help somebody else. In this case, it's Joseph Quinn's character Eric. So she's willing to put her life on the line in order to help somebody. And that's the best way, and that's what's gonna give her comfort in her last days, knowing that she helped somebody out. And honestly, like I said in the beginning of this video, this movie is just very meh. Like, as far as one of the categories that I have is the best performance, and the only performances that we really see in this movie, we got Lupita Nyong'o and we got Joseph Quinn. We get a nice little cameo, if you will. He might be in the first like what 10 minutes of the movie. Don't know the character's name, but he is the son in Hereditary. He is Tony Collette's son in Hereditary. Hereditary, by the way, is one of the best horror movies that I've seen now, what within the last 7, 8 years. Love that movie. But other than those, other than him, the movie is basically Lupita Nyong'o and Joseph Quinn. And between the two, the performances, I'm not saying that they were bad performances, but they weren't lasting performances. They weren't performances where I'm thinking about, now after a few days later, I'm thinking about how much they were really able to portray what they were trying to express through the character. Nothing really lasting. And the next category, and as far as worst performance, I don't have an answer for that either because Joseph Quinn and Lupita Nyong'o, neither one of their performances was bad, neither one of their performances was great. So I'm not really sure what to give it. And that's kind of the overall theme of this movie. This movie's pretty, I don't know. It's like whatever. Like what was kind of the point of this movie? And then one of the things that I like to talk about is a specific scene. Was there a specific scene in the movie that really called out to me? Was there a specific scene in the movie that really stood out to me? And honestly, there really wasn't. The whole entire movie, performances, scenes, I don't know, anything that popped out to this movie, it was kind of like I kind of expected more, and they just gave me what was traditionally expected from prequels and I guess sequels. Like it's just more. They're just continuing the story without giving it any more development. Without what I wanted to see, I guess it was a prequel, so maybe I might have been setting myself up for a disaster. But like whatever they do, if they do a sequel, if they do a prequel, I don't care what they do. They need to end it in part four or part three, technically, because this is before part one. So technically in part three what they need to do, we need to find out why the angels, aka Death Angels, why they came to Earth, what they want from this planet, and we also need to put a conclusion to the story. Like as far as the best scene in this movie, the only thing that I might be able to bring up was there's a scene where Joseph Quinn and Lupita Nyong'o, they're in the subway and they're trying to get to the next stop, but they actually have to walk or kind of swim to the next stop. And they're trying to do their best to not make any noise. And they end up finding that one of the Death Angels is like, I guess he's sleeping. I couldn't really tell what he was doing. He was sleeping or he was just chilling. I don't know what the hell he was doing. I don't know what the hell he was doing. But of course, something ends up happening. Oh, I think Joseph Quinn's character Eric ends up making a lot of noise, and the alien is swimming towards them, and we end up seeing that the alien actually drowned. So I'm not sure if in any of the first two movies that we saw that the aliens were kind of vulnerable to water. Again, I saw the first two movies I saw a long time ago, so there might be a scene in one of those two movies where we see that water is definitely an enemy of the aliens and they're not able to survive in it. But this is the first time that I'm learning that water is something detrimental to the aliens. So that's definitely an interesting piece of nugget moving forward. Like I just discussed, if there's going to be a sequel, it needs to be a conclusion to the story. I want to know why they came to this planet, what they want from this planet, and I want to see them being able to implement some sort of plan that we know that water is detrimental to them. I want to see some sort of we lock up SeaWorld, we lock up Disney World, we trap them, and we just make them swim in water until they all drown. I don't know, man. I just want to see something because this story is kind of like I keep saying, the story was kind of like whatever. Like, what was the point of this prequel? It didn't really add anything more to the story. We just saw how the world was reacting to the Death Angels coming to this planet in another part of the world. And that's pretty much what I got. Now, some more background information regarding this movie. So this movie comes off the back of writer-director Michael Sarnoski. And the way Michael Sarnoski really broke out into Hollywood, he wrote and directed, I believe, his feature debut, Pig, starring Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage is doing about, what, 12 movies a year? Nicolas Cage, obviously always regarded as one of the more respectable actors, but I've always wondered, like, why is he doing 12 movies a year? But I think there's some sort of like financial gain. So I don't know what's up with that. But after the movie came out, there seemed to be some backlash towards the end of the movie. So spoilers ahead. If you haven't seen the movie, pause this, go watch the movie, and come back. So the backlash of the ending of the movie is Lupita Nyong'o's character, Sam. After Joseph Quinn's character, Eric, he's able to escape on a boat, and now Lupita Nyong'o's character, she's left in the city. What the movie is trying to portray is that Lupita Nyong'o kind of fulfilled her purpose in helping somebody else out. And now she's back in Manhattan. She's all by herself. And she kind of, it's not that she gives up. It's not that she just like wants to transition, but I guess she's at peace with her decision to transition. So she's walking in the middle of the street and we see her headphones being plugged into like a speaker. She unplugs the headphone jack. She unplugs the headphones from the speaker, and then we literally see an alien just land right behind her, and that's when the scene goes black. The backlash was that not everybody liked it. It was kind of bleak, especially being a summer blockbuster movie. Why would you want to end the movie in a such bleak way? But the director himself, he actually came out, and I'm gonna put the link in the description below. So if you actually want to read the entire article, but the director came out and he said that it was an essential part of the film. You know that in order to do justice to the character and what she was going through, the movie has to somehow end like that. I think the biggest task for me with this project was to find a way to have that ending, but not make it feel the way it appears in the script. On paper, it feels bleak and sad, just like the end of the world is. But in practice and in how you experience it, I wanted the ending to feel somehow triumphant and life affirming. And in another excerpt from the article, Michael Sarnoski goes on to explain his motivations for ending the movie the way he did. Sam takes back her agency and her joy. And I think trying to feel that way while you're seeing her choose to die on her own terms was kind of the fun challenge of it. I was excited by what many people would think is a risky ending, and hopefully we pulled it off. I'm happy with it. I feel that way when I watch it, but it's a tricky one. It's definitely risky. Listen, man, all in all, this is a good summer movie. If you're just trying to kill some time, if you're just trying to enjoy a nice summer day after going to the beach and you don't know what else to do, of course, go see this movie. Support Lupita Nyong'o all day, every day. Joseph Quinn all day, every day. Great actors, great young up and coming actors. But if we look at it from the grand scope of things, when we look at it from the perspective of what is this movie trying to do, what is this movie trying to do? What is this movie trying to add to the first two movies? I honestly don't think it really did anything. If you told somebody that A Quiet Place has a part three, but the part three is a prequel, and you give that person no information about what the movie's going to be, I'm pretty sure they were able to guess almost probably 90% of the purpose of this movie. They would probably say that they were just going to show us another person, what they were going through when the aliens landed on Earth and what they were going through personally. And I honestly, man, like I kind of disappointed with this movie. After watching this movie, I was like, what was the purpose of that? It was so like it left me hanging so much. I really wish that they gave us some sort of information. And the whole scene that I described about the alien swimming after Sam and Eric, Joseph Quinn's character and Lupita Nyong'o's character, I'm not even sure if that was an important scene. I'm not sure if Michael Sarnoski, when he was writing the movie, I'm not sure that it was actually a point that he was trying to make, that like, okay, now we're actually going to give the audience and tell them and show them that they're vulnerable to water. That water is definitely something that we can use against them. I don't know, man. I'm this is a movie that I'm definitely not going to be watching again. Like, not even when it comes on VOD. Like, this movie is so just put in the back of my mind. Moving forward, all I need, all I want to see Emily Blunt and her children. I just want to see exactly where they are in part three, technically, well, part four, whatever. I just want to see where they are, and as far as like where they are with putting these aliens to sleep, man. Like, I feel like they milked it as long as they can. I feel like they milked it as much as they can. John Krasinski, spoiler, even though part one came out, I think like in 2018, John Krasinski died at the end of part one. So it kind of sucks that we're not going to be able to see him. But Emily Blunt and John Krasinski's children, I want to see where they are in their life. I want to see what tactics they've created. I want to see what the plan was to finally get rid of these things. So A Quiet Place, day one, guys. Not a huge recommendation. This is definitely one of the ones when it becomes VOD, and if you're like super bored and like, oh, A Quiet Place, there's a prequel. I didn't know that. If you wanted to watch it, then yeah, watch it. But honestly, you're not missing out on anything. You are not missing out on anything. There's no further story development. There's no further character development. We don't see any of the previous characters in this one. The only itty bitty character that we see, oh, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He's like Dijman. I'm totally butchering your name, bro, and I'm so sorry for that. If you've seen Never Back Down, let's say this. If you've seen Never Back Down, the main character's the actor's name, Sean Astin, and then his Mr. Miyagi in that movie. That actor, he's in this movie, but he was in also A Quiet Place Part 2. So he actually makes an appearance in this movie. but maybe within the first half hour of the movie we see him, and then after that it's straight quiet. He's not in the movie anymore. So there's honestly, you're not really missing out on anything. But guys, this is a short, sweet, and simple episode. Just wanted to get my thoughts out. Hopefully, you guys come back bigger and better with part three, technically part four, whatever you want to call it. John Krasinski, through the article that I was reading, actually, I learned that he's actually a creator of the series. So John Krasinski, man, you gotta come better, bro. I know you're giving the opportunities to other young and coming writers, directors. I know you want to get a fresh take, a fresh voice. I love that, but you also got to keep the fans in mind, man. You got to further develop the story, bro. But guys, that's it for today's episode. Thank you for checking it out. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on any of the podcast streaming platforms, whether if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you listen to your podcast, rate, review, and subscribe. And if you guys are watching this on YouTube, stop what you're doing, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. And until next time, guys, I'll check you out on the next episode of the Time Flies podcast.